Hey, it's Ben. I'm going to record a quick video today on so far the most requested topic we have, which is pricing. How to price your items to not only make a profit, but to move the items. We call moving it as in terms of getting it out of the booth, selling the product, getting it into customers' hands. So there's essentially three things to cover. Strategy, your overall pricing strategy, how you look up the value of items, and then landing on an actual price. And so we'll be going through those things, and I'll try to keep this as quick as possible. So strategy is something that, at least for Mom and I, we've talked about a lot. And so the strategy I refer to is, what type of seller do you want to be known as? What type of booth do you want to be known as? What type of customers do you want to create in terms of the loyalty to your booth, to your brand, to your items? So some people would rather sell one thing for $100 than selling two things for $50. So all of this happens in the context of, it really depends on how much you paid for the item and how much or how badly you want to get rid of it. And so if let's say you've got a handful of items and you paid $10 for all of them, or each of them, okay? So if you're selling one of those $10 items for $100, you're making $90 profit. Forget the commission, forget those types of things for now. If you're selling two $50 items and you paid $10 for each of them, then you're making $80 profit. So it's less profit, of course, but you're moving it. Now, if you paid a considerably lower amount or got items for free, or you've just had them in your house so long you really didn't ever buy them with the intent of reselling, I guess our strategy for our booths in the store is, we would rather sell 10 things for $10 than one thing for $100, or two things for $50, or four things for $25, if you kind of get where I'm going. So sometimes when I'm coaching people, I'll ask them, what do you have in this? And they'll say, well, I've got, $3 in it, but I'm going to put it at $100. Okay, well, it may be worth close to there, but are people going to be prepared to pay for it? How fast do you want to move it? If you have a small booth, things getting stagnant is like the kiss of death, because you've only got room for, let's say, 30 items. You want those items to be constantly moving. In another video, we'll talk about design and those types of things, as far as how to make the booth look presentable and great. But I think sometimes I see vendors that have gotten items for a really, really fair price, whether they bought a whole table at an auction for $1, or they got to go picking and they just bought a whole carload for $10 or something. And then, of course, there are things that, if you're buying them at consignment auctions, or if you're buying them at some thrift stores, sometimes the price does creep up. We all know that stores like Goodwill and even church-run stores like Save Insurance stuff, their prices are going up. And so that kind of means that our prices have to go up if we want to still maintain a decent profit margin. But just think about that. Would you rather sell multiple items for the same price at the end of the day, or close to the same price, or would you rather sell one or two things? So one thing we've always tried to do when we had individual booths instead of owning a store is, we would try to have a whole bunch of fairly priced items. So things in the $3 to $8 range. And let's say our booth rent was $100. And so we've got to sell 30 or 40 of those things to really be making booth rent, covering the fees that we're paying to the store, those types of things. So we would not only try to sell those things, but we would try, in any booth we had, to have at least one or two items that, if that item sold, it would pay for all of the booth rent. So the goal would be to sell one of those big items each month, because that then takes care of all your expenses. And then the rest of your items are all your profit. Every store also has a different feel. You may be in multiple stores throughout McPherson, throughout the Midwest, Hutch, Salina, Abilene. There's stores everywhere. And each one is going to have its own feel. Some stores get more money for things. Some stores have more customers that are really shopping in the $1 to $3 item range. And so it's just something to be aware of. So strategy is figure out, do you want to sell a few items for high dollar, or do you want to sell a lot of items for low dollar? It's something only you can choose. Certainly, I don't understand only wanting to sell 2 or 3 items a month or 10 items a month. I would rather sell 100 or 1,000 items a month at a fair price, but keep it moving, keeps the booth from getting stagnant, and it reduces the amount of time you have to test. Second thing is, how do we actually land on a price? So my mom, Lynn, is much better at this and more qualified to speak on this, but she doesn't like recording herself as much as I don't mind it. She pretty much, on most any item that comes through the store that we own, whether we've bought it at a garage sale or an auction, or we've been picking somewhere, or somebody's just brought it into the store, almost everything we're going to look up under eBay sold. So let's talk about that for a second. eBay is a powerful search engine of items for sale and items that have sold, but those are two different things. So somebody could list an item for $1 million, and you Google it, you found what you've got, you used Google Lens, or you've just figured out the markings on it and figured it out, and you see one that's sold for $1 million. You're going to be so excited. You've got to be logged in to an account, and then on the left-hand side, if you're on a desktop version on a computer, scroll all the way down and click search only for sold items. If you're on your phone, again, you have to be logged into an eBay account, and then there's a filters menu. On my phone, at least, it's on the right-hand side. You scroll down, click sold items, and so that then will start telling you what things have sold for. It'll also show you quantity. Have 100 of these things sold in the last month. That's a pretty good sign that it's moving, or is it quite low? The other thing is, let's say you see a line. Let's just say it's a book for now, and the list price was $10, but there's a line through it. That means that the seller accepted a lower offer. We don't know what that offer is. It's impossible for just the general public to see, but we know that they accepted a lower offer. If it's just in green and says sold, at least I think it's green, then that's, what it sold for. So there's a couple ways to, again, have some strategy around pricing. There's kind of two theories of thought, and Mom and I have a lot of conversations about this when we're pricing some of our items. On one hand, let's say you have a vintage Barbie doll. So we looked at buying a lot of Barbie dolls just about a week ago, and they had probably 30 Barbie dolls that were priced on eBay, sold anywhere from $30 to $130. And so you're talking needing to cut them a pretty big check or give them quite a bit of cash. For us, it wasn't the right deal because there was a lot of cash that needed to go out, and generally highly specialized collectible items you can make good money on, but it is so slow, and you've got to move them around 1,000 times. You're going to have somebody lowball you an offer, and so for us, it just wasn't the right deal. Which is a whole nother thing of, if it's not the right deal, even if you love it, but it's not the right price or it's not going to move, don't mess with it. That's the start of that. Anyway, so eBay sold. Let's say the book sold for $10 on eBay. You can approach it a couple different ways. The first way is eBay has an international audience. As much as I try to market the store, and as well as we do with our social media and our billboards and our radio and our TV and our Facebook ads and everything, TikTok channel, everything we got going, as much as we have with that, we're not reaching everybody in the world the way eBay is. And so if it's sold for 10 on eBay in our store, we're probably going to price it as 8, just to give a little bit of a benefit to the customer. because a lot of our customers shop with their phone and they look up stuff all the time. The invention of Google Lens is great, and it is also a curse. People think that they are, um, appraisers now. They just walk through and scan everything and see what they think vendors have underpriced and that they can buy and make money on. So we usually try to price under. There's a whole nother strategy though that says, okay, what if it was a $10 book, but the shipping was another $5? So really the customer paid $15. Would they pay $12 or $13 to have it in hand today? Because there's a lot of things that when I walk through flea markets or antique malls and I see something for 10 or 12 bucks that I know online is going for 3 or 4, but I can buy it now, I can have it now, that's worth something to some people. Again, that's a strategy you've got to just figure out. The more highly customized it is, or high, you talk about the sales funnel. And so look at anybody who's interested in something, and then it just slowly starts getting down to who's going to buy something. And so that affects price. And so I'll give an example. So let's say you have a coffee table that you've repainted and put a lot of work into. Okay, so first we have anybody. This is a sales funnel. Anybody ever who's looking for a coffee table. Okay, that's who we've got. Now they're looking for one that's a certain color. Let's say it was painted green. Okay, so now it goes down to one's painted green. Well, now it's people that are looking for a coffee table that's that size. So we keep going down. This channel here is the number of customers we can get. And so slowly it just keeps going further and further down. And so we try to, when we're selling stuff at least, have stuff that is not a niche product, something that would apply to everybody. Dolls from a certain year or China patterns from a certain year, those may sell, but how long might it sit excuse me, on your shelves? I'll go to my next topic because I'm already going way too long. When you actually write out the price, here's a few strategies. There are books. I've got books. You can borrow them from me if you want. There are internet articles you can certainly reach out and find. The way you price things does matter. So I'll give you an example. Mom and I have a rattan shelf, which those things can go for pretty good money online and in person. And so we talked about pricing it at, $160 or maybe $155. I think we ended up putting something like $148 on it. $148 gets under that $150 number, which it feels less expensive to people. Kind of the same way stores will do, let's say it's a movie, it's $2.99. The kid will go back to mom and say, Mom, this movie is only $2. They're missing that the 99 cents is still there. And so for some things, that works, especially if you are trying to kind of build an image or a brand of a booth that has really inexpensively priced items. And so if your goal is quantity, then sometimes those things can help. Other vendors have, different strategies. They look at how much they paid for it. They may have a calculation, so it may come out to be kind of a bizarre number. The only caveat I would have for the 99-cent type things. So there is a lot of research that says after the 99, like if you have a piece of furniture for $49.99 or a bracelet for $59.99, there's a lot of research that goes into saying customers feel that that's cheaper. And so if you're trying to sell something at a higher price point, especially let's say it's a real fancy necklace for $1,000. That psychology would argue that you should sell it for $1,000 instead of $9,999, or $999, because it makes people feel like the item is cheaper or less authentic or less quality. And so we've had vendors before that are selling really high quality things but at a low price, and people pass on it because it's a low price, because they feel like it's maybe a knockoff or it's not legitimate or something like that. And so it's weird that sometimes the higher price something, the better. Last thing I'll say on pricing. Um, Mom and I, the employees and I, we kind of have a running joke with some items because certain items come up to the cash register and you just know before you even seen a price tag or anything, you know which vendor it was because different vendors develop specialties and different vendors develop their own customers, their own brand. We've talked about that briefly in this video. One thing we also notice is let's say it's a candlestick. If a candlestick is in a poorly structured booth or a booth that is not real aesthetically pleasing, it's not real pretty, it's just kind of there. If it feels a little bit like a garage sale, just items on a shelf, that candlestick is going to go for significantly less than if it is in a well-staged booth. There's nothing right or wrong. Some people just say, I don't have the skill of staging or merchandising, and so I'm just going to kind of throw it all in there. What we've seen generally is those prices are lower. There are stores I shop in that things are just nicer in there, and the price point kind of goes up, and I'm comfortable with it. You just know. It's kind of like if you walked into a Coach handbag store. Everything in their store is well thought out of in terms of lighting and placement. There's only 4 bags in the whole store to buy from, and so people are more comfortable paying a higher price for that than if they walked in and there's 500 bags hanging from coat racks and everything like that. It's just different, and so the thing I guess that I'm really wanting to hammer home in these last 30 seconds is you need to probably make some decisions and decide what type of strategy you want to employ. You can just get here and sell and do your thing, but if you're really looking at making money, really looking at being a long-term successful vendor that's supplementing your income, it is good to have a strategy. I'd encourage you, just as I've done throughout the years, just look stuff up online. If you just Google, how should I price my items, or pricing psychology, there is a ton of information about that. So feel free to do that. As always, if you have questions with your price tags, if you're trying something new, feel free to take a picture of one price tag and send it to me, and I'll make sure we're on the same page, because sometimes people have really kind of way overhauled their price tags, and it makes it something that's not real friendly to the cashiers up front. And so we've got to be careful and make sure that we've got a tag that meets the requirements. I thank you for the time you've spent. Wow, too much time today. This next one will be shorter, but an important topic to talk about. Thanks.